Have you ever felt a connection so powerful? It felt like the universe itself shifted to make it possible. Have you ever locked eyes with a stranger and known, with a certainty that defies all logic, that your life was about to change forever? This is not just a love story. This is a story of two colliding worlds, of a man who has everything: power, wealth, influence, yet possesses nothing of true value until the moment he sees her. Alexander Vance is a king in a gilded cage, a master of his universe who has never known the taste of real freedom, or the torment of true, all-consuming desire. And Alara is the quiet storm he never saw coming, a woman of grace and hidden strength, living a simple life of art and dreams, unaware that she holds the key to a heart she never knew was waiting for her. What happens when a force of nature meets his one true anchor? When a love so intense, so passionate, and so dangerously all-consuming ignites between two souls from different worlds? Prepare to step into a world of opulent penthouses and whispered vows, of stolen touches, and a passion that burns brighter than a city's skyline. This is a story of a love that is both salvation and ruin, a beautiful captivity that is the only freedom that matters. If you've ever wondered what it would be like to be loved beyond reason, desired beyond measure, and cherished beyond the boundaries of time itself, then turn the page. Your journey into the symphony of you and I begins now. If you love story about mafia boss and romance, please do well to subscribe, and we will keep bringing it to your screen every week.
The unraveling. The grand ballroom was a sea of glittering masks and manufactured laughter, a symphony of superficiality that grated against Alexander's soul. As one of the city's most powerful tech magnates, he was expected to inhabit these spaces, to network and charm. But tonight, the air felt thinner, the lights harsher. He stood near a towering window, a crystal tumbler of amber whiskey hanging from his fingers, untouched. He was a king in a gilded cage, surveying a kingdom that felt increasingly hollow. And then, he saw her. It was not a dramatic entrance. She was simply there, a new server, perhaps, carrying a tray of champagne flutes through the throng of wealthy guests. She moved with a grace that was entirely out of place, a quiet river flowing through a noisy, artificial landscape. Her simple black dress was a stark contrast to the elaborate gowns around her, and she wore no mask, her face open and expressive. Their eyes met across the crowded room. The universe did not so much pause as it folded. The cacophony of voices, the clinking of glasses, the swell of the string quartet, it all melted into a distant, meaningless hum. Alexander felt the breath catch in his throat, his heart seizing before launching into a new, frantic rhythm. Yours, yours, yours. Her eyes were the color of a twilight sky, a deep, stormy gray that held both vulnerability and a startling depth. In that single, fleeting glance, he didn't just see a beautiful woman. He saw a soul. He felt a recognition so profound, so primal. It was as if he'd been searching for her in countless dreams and lonely midnights, and had finally, miraculously, found her. Every path he had walked, every heartbreak he had endured, every fleeting hope he had cherished, it had all been leading him to this exact coordinates in space and time. His heart, which had been merely a biological metronome keeping time, suddenly learned its true purpose, to beat in harmony with hers. A guest jostled her, and the moment broke. She offered a small, apologetic smile to the man, and then her gaze was swept away, back to her duties. But that smile, oh, that smile, it was not a practiced social gesture. It was a true, radiant expression that transformed her entire face, lighting it from within. To Alexander, it was like watching the dawn break after the longest, darkest night of his soul. He felt its warmth spread through his chest, a tangible heat that began, melting the permafrost that had encased his heart for years. He, who commanded boardrooms and markets, who could make or break fortunes with a phone call, was utterly, completely, undone by the gentle curve of a waitress's lips. In that moment, a certainty settled in his bones, as unshakable as the foundations of the earth. He would move mountains, part oceans, and rewrite the stars, themselves to be the reason that smile graced her lips again and again.
She had become his personal sunrise, the light that promised a new beginning, a chance at a love he had only read about in poetry. He'd long since dismissed as fantasy. He didn't approach her that night. He was a man who valued strategy, who understood the power of observation. He watched her, this enigmatic beacon in the shallow sea. He saw the way she navigated the crowd with quiet efficiency, the way she patiently listened to a pompous old man's monologue, her head tilted in genuine attention. He saw the way she would occasionally tuck a stray strand of chestnut hair behind her ear, a small, unconscious gesture that sent a wave of inexplicable tenderness crashing through him. These small, unconscious movements were already being etched into his memory with the precision of a master engraver, each one a precious treasure. They were the brushstrokes in the masterpiece that was her, and he, Alexander Vance, was suddenly the most devoted admirer, hungry to discover every detail, every hidden wonder. When his driver opened the door of the black sedan for him hours later, the image of her was burned onto the back of his eyelids. The city lights blurred past, but he saw only her twilight eyes, her dawnbreak smile. The cage, for the first time, did not feel so solid. She had slipped between the bars without even trying. The scent of jasmine. He found out her name was Alara. Alara Vance. The coincidence of her sharing part of his name felt like fate's signature on their story. He learned she was a graduate student in art history, working events to pay her tuition. He deliberately began frequenting the museum where she worked part-time as a guide, lingering in the Renaissance wing he knew she was assigned to. The first time he heard her voice, it was a revelation. She was explaining the use of chiaroscuro in a Caravaggio painting to a small group of tourists. Her voice was a soft, melodic hum, a composition more beautiful than anything the old masters had ever created. It was a song that could calm his internal storms or stir his dormant passions with a single note. He stood in the shadows, closing his eyes, just to listen to the cadence of her speech, committing every inflection to memory. He was building a library of her sounds, a sacred collection to sustain him. He began to orchestrate chance encounters, a coffee shop near the university, a park bench she frequented on her lunch break. He was always casual, never pressing. He asked about her studies, her opinions on the art they'd both seen. He presented a version of himself that was stripped of his power and wealth, just a man, intrigued by a woman. And then came the first touch. They were walking through the park, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. She stumbled on an unseen root, and his hand shot out, steadying her by the elbow. The contact was electric. It was not a metaphor. A jolt of pure, undiluted energy sparked at the point of contact and raced up his arm, setting every nerve ending ablaze. His body, which he had always viewed as a tool, a vessel for his ambition, seemed to have been designed with the sole purpose of responding to her. He was an instrument, dormant for a lifetime, and her touch was the first note of its true music. He felt the imprint of her arm through the fabric of her coat like a brand, a welcome mark of ownership. For days afterward, his skin hummed with the memory, craving the next connection, the next proof that he was hers to touch, to awaken. He learned the scent of her. It was not a heavy, expensive perfume, but something lighter, more essential. Notes of jasmine and fresh rain, with the faint, clean warmth of her skin beneath. That unique, intoxicating fragrance would linger in his car after he dropped her off, a ghost of her presence that both comforted and aroused him, a fragrant promise that kept him company in her absence. One evening, as he walked her to the door of her modest apartment building, a cold drizzle began to fall. He offered his coat. She slipped her arms into the oversized sleeves, drowning in the fine wool that smelled faintly of him sandalwood and crisp linen. The sight of her wrapped in his garment, her face upturned to the rain, sent a possessive thrill through him so fierce it stole his breath. "Elara," he said, his voice low, the name a prayer he'd been holding in his heart. She turned to him, her gray eyes luminous in the dim light. "Alexander." He stepped closer, the rain peppering his shoulders. He raised a hand and cupped her cheek, his thumb stroking the soft skin just beside her lips. He felt her tremble, but she didn't pull away. Her eyes fluttered closed for a second. "Do you have any idea," he whispered, the words raw and unpolished, "what you do to me?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "My love for you," he continued, his gaze burning into hers, "is not a quiet, gentle thing, Elara. It is a roaring inferno in my soul. It is a tempest in my blood. It terrifies me. It exhilarates me. You have awakened a hunger in me that only you can sat." He saw the pulse beating wildly at the base of her throat. He saw the answering fire in her own eyes. "I crave the taste of your lips," he confessed, his voice dropping to a husky whisper, his face so close he could feel her warm breath on his skin. "Like a man stranded in the desert craves water, they are my salvation and my sin. May I kiss you, Elara?" Her answer was a soft, surrendering sigh as she closed the infinitesimal distance between them. The kiss was not gentle. It was a conflagration. It was the culmination of weeks of simmering desire, of stolen glances, and building tension. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her small, sturdy frame against the solid wall of his chest, crushing her to him as if he could fuse their souls together through the sheer force of his need. His mouth claimed hers with a desperate, hungry passion, tasting of rain and a dark, addictive love. It was a kiss that spoke of possession and worship, of a deep, abiding hunger that only she could sat. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless, foreheads resting together, the rain soaking them both. "Come home with me," he pleaded, his voice ragged with emotion. "Let me worship you. Let me show you the universe I would build for you, Elara." Her body thrumming with a need so profound it scared her, her heart beating the same frantic rhythm as his, could only nod. The altar of skin. His penthouse was not what she expected. It was not cold and sterile, but warm, filled with books and art, with a breathtaking, panoramic view of the city laid out like a carpet of diamonds at their feet. But the moment the heavy door closed behind them, the view was forgotten. He pinned her against the door, his mouth finding hers again with a frantic urgency that made her knees weak. His hands, those hands that commanded empires, now trembled as they fumbled with the buttons of her damp coat, then the simple fabric of her dress. "You are the most exquisite creature I have ever beheld," he growled against her skin, his lips tracing a searing path down her neck to the delicate hollow of her collarbone. "Your beauty haunts my every waking moment and invades my dreams." He peeled the wet fabric from her shoulders, letting it pool at her feet. The cool air of the penthouse hit her skin, but it was nothing compared to the heat of his gaze. A reverent gasp escaped him. "Dio mio," he breathed, his dark eyes blazing with adoration and raw lust. "You are a masterpiece, Elara. Every curve, every line of you was designed to be my ruin and my salvation." He lifted her into his arms as if she weighed nothing and carried her to his bedroom, a vast expanse of dark silk and shadows. He laid her down on the cool sheets and stood back, drinking in the sight of her, bathed in the silver light of the moon and the distant city glow. His Elara finally in his bed, her gray eyes dark with desire and trust. He undressed with a predator's grace, never breaking eye contact. When he joined her on the bed, the heat of his skin against hers was a brand. His touch was both possessive and reverent. He began to worship her. He started with her hands, lifting each finger to his mouth, kissing the tips, tracing the lines of her palms with his tongue. "These hands," he murmured, "that create beauty on canvas. I want to feel them on my skin always." He moved to her arms, his lips painting invisible patterns from her wrists to her shoulders. He mapped the terrain of her body with his hands and mouth, learning the secrets that made her gasp and arch against him. He discovered that a kiss to the inside of her elbow made her shiver, that his tongue tracing the shell of her ear drew a broken moan from her lips. "Tell me what you desire, me or more," he whispered, his voice ragged with restraint. "Your pleasure is my only command. Your sighs are the only music I wish to hear." Her hands tangled in his dark hair, pulling him closer. "You, Alexander," she moaned, her body arching off the bed. "I only want you, all of you, please." He moved down her body, his worship becoming more intimate, more primal. He kissed the gentle swell of her stomach, the sensitive skin of her inner thighs. He used his hands, his mouth, his tongue to explore the very core of her, to learn the geography of her pleasure. He wanted to memorize every response until he could play her body like a virtuoso plays his instrument, creating symphonies of sensation that left them both breathless and transformed. When she came apart for the first time that night, her cry of release was a sound of pure, unadulterated ecstasy. It was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard, the music that gave meaning to his existence. He held her through the tremors, whispering words of love and adoration against her damp skin. When he finally entered her, it was with a slow, devastating intensity that made her cry out again, this time with the overwhelming rightness of it. It was not just a joining of bodies, it was a fusion of spirits. He moved within her with a powerful, rhythmic grace, his eyes locked on hers, whispering a litany of adoration. "You are my heart, Alara," he rasped, his body trembling with the effort to hold back his climax, "to prolong this perfect union. You are the light in my endless night. I am yours, completely, irrevocably. Every beat of my heart whispers your name." His words, the raw emotion in his eyes, the exquisite friction of their bodies, unlocked something deep inside her. The pleasure built again, a coiling, unbearable tension that shattered into a million pieces. She fell apart beneath him, her body convulsing around his, her cry of release echoing in the vast, silent room. The sight of her ecstasy, the feel of her pulsing around him, broke his last shred of control. He drove into her one last, deep time, his own release tearing through him with a guttural roar, spilling his seed and his soul inside her. Afterward, he held her, their limbs tangled, their hearts beating a frantic, synchronized rhythm against each other. He brushed the damp hair from her forehead, his touch impossibly gentle. "I love you, Alara," he whispered into the quiet dark, the words feeling more true, more powerful than any vow he had ever taken. "I have existed my whole life, but I was not alive until you. You are my destiny." She curled into his side, her head on his chest, listening to the steady, powerful beat of his heart. "I love you, Alexander," she whispered back, knowing her life had just been irrevocably, wonderfully changed. The language of the divine. Their love-making became the central sacrament of their lives. It was never just a physical act, never just the sum of their joined bodies and mingled breath. It was a conversation where their souls spoke the language of the divine, a prayer of gratitude offered at the altar of their union, a homecoming to a place they'd both been searching for their entire lives. For Alexander, it was the place where he was most truly himself, the powerful CEO, the strategic mind. The guarded man all fell away. In her arms, he was vulnerable and powerful all at once, because he was safe with her, cherished by her, understood by her in ways that transcended ordinary understanding. He trusted her with his body, his heart, and his very soul. He loved to awaken her in the middle of the night with slow, languorous kisses, with hands that learned her body in the darkness until he could find his way home using only the memory of her curves as his guide. He would map the constellations of freckles on her back with his tongue, trace the elegant line of her spine with his fingertips, committing every ridge and valley to memory. "I want to worship every inch of you," he would murmur against her skin, his voice thick with sleep and desire. "I want to build an altar of my devotion upon the sacred ground of your skin." He was a man obsessed with her pleasure. He would spend hours exploring her, discovering that a certain way of circling his thumb over her hip bone made her gasp, that a kiss to the back of her knee made her giggle and squirm, that a particular rhythm of his thrusts, deep and slow, would make her sob his name as if in prayer. "Let go for me, my love," he would whisper, his body moving in that ancient, perfect rhythm. "Surrender to me. I will catch you. I will always catch you." And she would, in his arms. She was not afraid to let go, to surrender completely to the tidal wave of feeling he evoked in her. The moment he felt her surrender, the moment her body went pliant and then taut with climax, was the most powerful, humbling experience of his life. It was a sacred trust that he vowed to honor until his last breath. Their passion was a living thing, a force that reshaped their reality. It was in the coffee they shared in the morning, the way he would watch her stir in the sugar, her movements still languid from their night together. It was in the songs on the radio that seemed to speak directly to their hearts, each lyric a message about their love. It was in the very path the moon took across the night sky, reminding them of the nights they spent wrapped in each other, their bodies entwined, their hearts beating in synchrony. He rewired her existence, as surely as she had his. Her art changed, became bolder, more passionate, filled with light and shadow, with the same chiaroscuro she had once lectured about, now felt in the very depths of her being. Her dreams were populated by him. Her every ambition for the future now included him at its center. One weekend, he took her to a secluded cabin in the mountains. They spent 3 days in near total solitude, their world reduced to the crackling fireplace, the vast bed, and each other. On the second night, a storm raged outside, the wind howling like a wild thing. Inside, they were a world of their own, moving together on a blanket before the fire, their bodies slick with sweat and passion, illuminated by the flashes of lightning. He looked down at her, her hair fanned out like a dark halo, her eyes black with desire, her lips swollen from his kisses. The love that swelled in his chest was so immense, so all-consuming, it felt like it would crack his ribs. "I want to drown in you," he rasped, his movements becoming more urgent, more primal. "I want to lose myself in the depths of your love and discover a new, better version of myself in your arms." "Alexander," she cried out, her nails digging into his back, her body arching to meet his every thrust. "You are my greatest adventure," he vowed, his voice breaking with emotion. "You are my most cherished dream. You are my undeniable destiny." When their climax came, it was simultaneous, a cataclysm that felt like it shook the very foundations of the cabin. They clung to each other as the storm reached its zenith outside, two souls fused in a blaze of sensation and emotion that burned away everything but the essential truth of their love. In the quiet aftermath, as they lay tangled together listening to the rain, he knew with a certainty that went beyond reason. He was hers, completely and forever. Every beat of his heart, every breath in his body, every thought in his mind belonged to her. This beautiful captivity was the only true freedom he had ever known. He pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of jasmine and their shared passion. "Marry me, Alara," he whispered into her hair. "Be my sunrise, every day, for the rest of my life." And in her soft, sure yes, he found his forever. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so you don't miss our next episode. Bye.